What if your thoughts could heal, attract wealth, and shape your destiny? Deep inside you lies a silent force, your subconscious mind. It never sleeps. It never doubts. It simply obeys whatever you truly believe. Joseph Murphy didn't just write a book. He unlocked the code to rewiring reality through thought. Welcome to Thinknova, where we explore the power within you, waiting to be awakened. In the quiet hours of early morning, when most of the world was still asleep, countless minds stirred with questions. Questions not about the outer world, but about the deep, unexplored terrain within. It was in this space, somewhere between curiosity and a longing for peace, that people began to turn inward and ask, what is truly directing my life? This was not a question about fate, nor entirely about free will. It was something deeper. For generations, humans believed their lives were shaped only by conscious effort, by hard work, willpower, and discipline. Yet, an invisible force quietly ran beneath the surface of their thoughts, like a hidden river shaping the landscape of their lives. That force was the subconscious mind. For Joseph Murphy, understanding this unseen force became a lifelong journey. His early years were not unlike anyone else's, filled with learning, struggle, and the desire for understanding. But what set him apart was his insatiable curiosity about why some people seemed to thrive effortlessly, while others, despite good intentions and tireless effort, remained stuck. He began to suspect that success, healing, love, and happiness were not just products of circumstance or education, but of the mind's relationship with itself. As he studied spiritual philosophies, religious teachings, and modern psychology, one idea began to emerge over and over again. It was the principle that the subconscious mind accepts what it is told, without filter or question. It was obedient, powerful, and constant, working 24 hours a day, even when the conscious mind was asleep. Imagine a gardener planting seeds. The soil does not care whether the seeds are for beautiful roses or poisonous weeds. It simply accepts them and brings them to life. The subconscious mind, Murphy realized, was exactly like that. Whatever thoughts or beliefs were impressed upon it, through repetition, emotion, or strong conviction, were accepted and acted upon. The results could be magnificent or destructive, depending entirely on the nature of the thoughts planted. He saw this clearly in the lives of those around him. There was the woman who constantly told herself she was unworthy of love, and found herself in relationship after relationship that confirmed her deepest fear. There was the man who always believed money was evil, and despite countless business ventures, never allowed himself to prosper. And there were those who spoke often of health and joy, and seemed to recover from illness more quickly than anyone expected. Murphy began to gather stories, real stories, of transformation. There was a woman in New York who had lost her voice. Doctors said there was no physical reason for her condition. But in conversation, she revealed a deep fear of speaking in public. Her subconscious mind had accepted that fear so completely that it shut down her voice entirely. Through suggestion and a new pattern of thought, her voice returned, effortlessly. Then there was the businessman who struggled financially for years. He had a habit of complaining, saying aloud that he was always broke. He laughed at the idea that words had power. But when he began affirming wealth, focusing daily on abundance and imagining himself as already prosperous, things changed. Contracts appeared. New clients came. His belief had shifted, and so had his results. Joseph Murphy did not claim to have discovered this principle. It was ancient, echoed in scriptures and wisdom traditions across the world. What he did was translate it for the modern world. He explained how the subconscious mind works, how it can be influenced, and how it governs the outcomes of our lives without us even realizing. He explained that the conscious mind is like the captain of a ship, giving commands. The subconscious mind is the crew below deck, obeying every instruction, regardless of whether it's good or bad. If the captain sends a signal of fear, doubt, or failure, the crew begins to create exactly that. But if the captain sends commands of faith, love, and success, the results align accordingly. People often wonder why affirmations don't work. Murphy clarified that mere words were not enough. The subconscious mind responds not to hollow repetition, but to belief backed by emotion. It must be felt. It must be imagined as already true. Just as a seed requires water and sunlight, a thought needs feeling and repetition to take root in the subconscious. He also warned against self-sabotage. Many unknowingly affirm negative outcomes. Phrases like, "I can't afford that," "I'm always sick," or "nothing ever works out for me," are accepted by the subconscious and made manifest. The mind does not discern sarcasm. It does not understand jokes. It simply receives what is repeated and emotionally charged. Murphy taught people to become aware of their inner dialogue, to discipline their thoughts not with harshness, but with awareness. The goal was not to suppress fear or anxiety, but to replace it with stronger, truer thoughts rooted in love and abundance. He encouraged daily practice, affirming positive truths, visualizing desired outcomes, and above all, believing in the power within. He shared the technique of prayer, though not always in the religious sense. Prayer to Murphy was a focused mental act of affirming a truth so clearly that the subconscious had no choice but to accept it. He advised praying as though the desired result was already true. He said, "Thank the subconscious as though the work is already done." This created a sense of completion, of peace, which aligned the inner world with the outer one. One of his most powerful teachings involved the use of sleep. The final moments before falling asleep were a gateway to the subconscious. At that time, the mind was quiet, and the guard of the conscious mind was low. He suggested repeating affirmations or visualizing desires just before sleep, letting those thoughts sink deeply into the subconscious mind where they could work undisturbed throughout the night. People began to experiment with this. A man going through financial stress began every night to imagine checks arriving in the mail, clients paying on time, and a sense of peace returning to his home. Within weeks, his situation shifted. A teacher struggling with discipline in her classroom used the moments before sleep to imagine harmonious interactions with her students. The change was almost magical. But Murphy always insisted, this was not magic. This was law. Just as gravity does not judge who it affects, the subconscious responds to whoever uses it, with whatever they feed it. There was no need for rituals or external validation. The power was already within. It simply needed to be awakened. He gave exercises, simple yet profound. He told people to choose a single affirmation, something deeply desired but stated in the present tense. For example, "I am healthy and full of energy," or "I attract prosperity and abundance every day." He instructed them to repeat this affirmation many times a day, especially before sleep, and to combine it with the feeling that it was already true. At first, the conscious mind would resist. It would argue. It would say, "But you're not healthy," or "You're still broke." Murphy said this was natural. The conscious mind works with appearances. The subconscious, however, works with belief. And belief can be planted, nurtured, and grown, regardless of present reality. He reminded people of the placebo effect, a powerful demonstration of how belief alone could lead to healing. A sugar pill, when believed to be medicine, could trigger real physiological changes. If belief could cure pain, it could certainly transform other areas of life. The subconscious was the medium, and belief was the message. He told of a nurse who believed she was cursed. Her family had a history of illness, and she expected the same. Her subconscious mind, loyal to her expectations, delivered just that. But when she began affirming health, studying the laws of the mind, and seeing herself as vibrant and free, her body followed suit. Murphy also warned of the dangers of negative influence. He encouraged people to guard their minds as they would a treasure. Negative news, gossip, criticism, and toxic company could implant seeds of fear and doubt. He advised choosing surroundings and media carefully and spending time in uplifting, peaceful environments. In offices and homes, Murphy's teachings began to circulate. People who had been skeptical started to see results. Marriages improved, careers flourished, health stabilized. It wasn't always dramatic, but it was consistent. The inner world shaped the outer world, and the subconscious mind was the bridge between the two. The power lay not in the technique, but in the consistency. A farmer does not plant a seed and expect a harvest the next morning. So too, the mind required time and patience. But if the thoughts were planted faithfully, and if belief was watered with daily repetition and feeling, change was inevitable. Through his books, lectures, and examples, Joseph Murphy brought this invisible world into focus. He reminded people that they were not victims of fate, nor powerless before circumstances. They had access to a silent partner, one that never slept, never doubted, and always obeyed. This was only the beginning. The transformation people experienced did not stem from external blessings or sudden miracles, but from subtle and consistent changes in their thoughts. As more individuals applied Joseph Murphy's principles, the stories began to multiply. In cities and villages, in the quiet corners of homes and the bustling halls of offices, people discovered that their minds held a key, one they had ignored for years. In a small town in California, a man named Edward faced severe insomnia. For weeks, sleep evaded him, and medication offered no relief. Desperate and exhausted, he stumbled upon the teachings of Murphy. He learned that before sleep, the mind enters a state of suggestion where the subconscious is more receptive than ever. Instead of worrying, Edward decided to create a new bedtime ritual. Every night as he lay in bed, he gently repeated, "I sleep peacefully all night. I wake up refreshed and calm." He said it not with force, but with gentle belief. By the third night, he drifted off without struggle. In a week, his insomnia was gone. Stories like Edward's were not isolated. They were echoes of a universal principle at work. The subconscious mind did not analyze or rationalize. It obeyed. In the realm of healing, the power of the subconscious was even more evident. A woman named Lisa had been told by doctors that her arthritis was chronic and irreversible. She could hardly bend her fingers, and pain was constant. But she was determined to try another way. She began to visualize herself using her hands freely, walking without discomfort, living pain-free. She combined this with affirmations such as, "My body heals itself in divine order," and "Every day, I grow stronger and healthier." With time, not only did her pain reduce, but her fingers regained mobility. Her doctors were puzzled. She was not. Joseph Murphy often spoke of the power of the imagination. To him, imagination was not a childish fantasy, but a creative force. When a person imagined something vividly and emotionally, the subconscious accepted it as real. The body and the world would then begin to align with that internal picture. He gave the example of a man who wanted to increase his income. Rather than simply wishing for money, the man began to imagine himself opening letters with checks inside, receiving compliments from clients, and hearing the sounds of business transactions going well. He filled his mind with that image several times a day, especially before sleep. Weeks later, new opportunities emerged, ones that had been there all along but were previously invisible to his fearful mind. The subconscious, Murphy said, was like fertile soil. It did not care what seeds were planted. If seeds of fear, worry, and doubt were sown, the harvest would be anxiety, illness, and scarcity. But if seeds of confidence, health, and wealth were sown, the result would be abundance and peace. This idea brought both great power and great responsibility. It meant that each individual was, in effect, the architect of their own life. Circumstances might arise, but responses to those circumstances could always be shaped by inner beliefs, and those beliefs could be changed. One of Murphy's most famous stories involved a boy who stuttered. Years of therapy had failed to help, but the boy was taught to visualize himself speaking confidently, clearly, and with joy. He repeated affirmations such as, "My speech flows smoothly and freely many times each day." Within a few months, the stutter faded, and his speech became natural. Joseph emphasized that while affirmations were helpful, They were not enough by themselves. Belief was the crucial ingredient. Saying, "I am confident," while feeling weak inside would have little effect. But if the affirmation was said with feeling, supported by visualization, and repeated consistently, the subconscious would accept it as a command. He also taught about the danger of resentment and unforgiveness. Holding anger in the heart poisoned the mind. The subconscious could not create harmony in a mind filled with hatred. Many illnesses, he said, were rooted not in the body, but in old emotional wounds. The solution was forgiveness, not just of others, but of oneself. He told the story of a woman who had a chronic skin condition. No treatment worked. But during a session with Murphy, she admitted she had harbored deep resentment toward her sister for years. She was encouraged to release that anger and bless her sister mentally every day. As she did, her skin began to clear. Within weeks, she was fully healed. Her body had responded to the shift in her inner state. Murphy reminded people that they did not need to beg their subconscious to help them. It was not a separate entity to be persuaded. It was part of them. All they needed to do was speak clearly, believe deeply, and allow it to work. He taught about the power of relaxed concentration. When one is tense, the mind becomes closed. But in relaxation, the subconscious is more open. That is why so many great ideas come during showers, walks, or just before sleep. He encouraged people to take time each day to be quiet, to sit in stillness, and to gently impress the mind with positive truths. He explained that the subconscious controls all bodily functions, heartbeat, digestion, breathing, and can therefore bring healing if given the right instructions. He advised those with illnesses to speak lovingly to their bodies, to say, "Every cell in my body is made whole," or "My heart beats in perfect rhythm." The body listens. The subconscious listens. In relationships too, the teachings proved powerful. A woman who felt unloved began to affirm daily, "I radiate love and receive love in return." She imagined herself being treated with kindness and respect. Her energy changed. People noticed. Her interactions improved. Eventually, she attracted a loving partner who mirrored her new belief. Murphy stressed that we attract not what we want, but what we believe. A person may desire success, but deep down believe they are unworthy. In such a case, the subconscious will block opportunities or sabotage progress. The key was to uncover and change that inner belief. To do this, he recommended affirmations, visualization, and mental rehearsal. He also suggested writing down limiting beliefs and replacing them with empowering ones. For example, changing, "I always fail" to, "I am capable and succeed in all I do," and then repeating the new belief until it felt true. Children, he said, were especially impressionable. Their subconscious minds were wide open. Parents and teachers carried great responsibility. A careless remark like, "You're so stupid," could become a lifelong wound. But encouragement, praise, and love planted seeds of confidence that lasted a lifetime. Murphy believed that the subconscious could also help in creative work. Writers, artists, and musicians could receive inspiration by asking their subconscious for ideas before sleep. He told of a composer who, struggling to finish a symphony, began each night to say, "My subconscious gives me the perfect melody." Within days, he awoke with tunes in his head. He also addressed the use of the subconscious in solving problems. When facing a dilemma, he advised asking the subconscious for guidance. The person should state the problem clearly, then say, "I believe my subconscious has the perfect answer, and it reveals it to me now." The answer might come in a dream, a sudden idea, or a chance encounter, but it would come. Faith, he emphasized, was not blind. It was based on understanding that the mind shapes reality, that belief shapes experience, and that every person has within them a silent, infinite power waiting to be used. He told a story of a man who lost everything in a financial crash. Desperate and ashamed, the man turned to the teachings. He began affirming daily, "Wealth flows to me freely and abundantly." He imagined himself walking with confidence, dealing with clients, and receiving payments. He refused to dwell on loss. Within a year, his fortunes reversed. He did not just recover, he surpassed his previous success. This was not luck. It was law. Like gravity or electricity, the subconscious followed predictable patterns. Those who understood it could use it. Those who ignored it remained victims of chance. Murphy urged people not to use this power selfishly. He warned that any attempt to manipulate or harm others through mental suggestion would backfire. The subconscious worked best when aligned with love, truth, and goodwill. What one sent out would return multiplied. He ended many of his talks with a simple affirmation. Right now, infinite intelligence is guiding me. I am at peace. He believed peace was the foundation of all healing. A quiet mind was a powerful mind. For those facing fear, he offered hope. Fear, he said, was a thought, a belief in harm. It could be dissolved by affirming safety, strength, and faith. A woman terrified of flying began repeating, "God is with me. I am safe." She visualized herself landing calmly. When she finally boarded the plane, her panic was gone. She enjoyed the journey. The subconscious responded not only to words but to images, emotions, and repetition. One-time affirmations had little effect, but daily practice, infused with feeling, could rewire the mind completely. Joseph Murphy's mission was simple: to awaken people to their own power. Not to make them dependent on any guru or external force, but to point them inward. To show them that the keys to health, wealth, peace, and joy were already in their hands. As Joseph Murphy's message continued to spread, more people began to embrace the quiet miracle working within them. They no longer waited for circumstances to change. Instead, they turned inward, working consciously with their subconscious mind to create the lives they desired. This new way of living required discipline, yes, but more than that, it required trust, a deep trust that the mind, when guided gently and purposefully, would always align with good. In the business world, Murphy's teachings proved especially useful. A salesman named Richard had faced continual rejection. He believed, without realizing it, that he was not persuasive enough, not worthy of success. That belief echoed through his voice, posture, and behavior. Once he recognized this inner sabotage, he began a daily affirmation ritual. I am confident, persuasive, and successful. I attract clients easily. My work is valuable. He visualized clients saying yes, smiling, shaking his hand. Within months, his closing rate doubled. He didn't change his pitch, he changed his mind. Murphy explained that money itself was not evil or good. It was simply a symbol of exchange, a flow of energy. People who feared or despised wealth often found it difficult to receive it. He urged individuals to bless money, to speak of it with respect, to affirm that it flowed freely and abundantly. A scarcity mindset created scarcity. An abundance mindset created abundance. He told of a woman who always struggled with money despite working hard. She would often say, "I can't afford that," or "Money doesn't grow on trees." These phrases, said with conviction, had become her truth. Murphy advised her to replace those with, "Wealth flows to me in expected and unexpected ways." She practiced this every day, and gradually, her circumstances improved. New opportunities appeared. Debts cleared. Her mindset had shifted from limitation to openness. Another man, a writer, used to believe that art and prosperity could not coexist. He thought he had to choose between creativity and financial success. But Murphy encouraged him to affirm both. My creativity blesses others and brings me prosperity. Within a year, he was publishing articles, receiving invitations to speak, and earning more than he ever had. The subconscious had accepted a new belief and brought it to life. Murphy's teachings also reached the field of education. A school principal who struggled with staff conflict and student misbehavior began applying the principles of suggestion. Each morning, she sat in stillness and imagined her school filled with harmony, laughter, and respect. She affirmed daily, "Peace reigns in this place. Every teacher and student feels valued and supported." Over time, she noticed subtle changes. Discipline issues decreased. Teachers smiled more. Meetings became collaborative. The energy had shifted, and the results followed. In one lecture, Murphy spoke of a man who constantly feared losing his job. Every day, he repeated the same story in his mind. "They'll fire me any day now. I'm not good enough." Despite being skilled and punctual, his fears came true. He was let go. But instead of despair, he took Murphy's advice seriously. He began to say, "I am valuable. I am always in demand. The perfect job finds me now." With this new mental image, he was hired by a better company with a higher salary and greater respect. The subconscious, Murphy explained, does not understand jokes, sarcasm, or half-hearted intention. It receives all impressions with equal seriousness. That is why careless self-talk can be dangerous. Phrases like, "I'm so dumb," or "nothing ever works for me," are taken literally and acted upon. He urged everyone to become guardians of their mental garden, planting only seeds they wish to grow. He offered a powerful metaphor. The mind is like a movie screen, and the subconscious is the camera projecting the image. Change the film, the thoughts, and the projection, the experience, must change too. If the inner story is one of fear, struggle, and lack, that will be the life experienced. But if the inner story is one of joy, ease, and success, then the same law applies. Murphy often emphasized that this was not about denying reality. It was about creating a new reality. If someone was ill, he did not advise pretending the illness didn't exist. Instead, he advised affirming health, focusing on vitality, and imagining the body healed. The subconscious responds to what is held most vividly and consistently. A young woman struggling with anxiety tried every form of therapy. When she encountered Murphy's work, she learned to redirect her mind. Instead of focusing on panic, she began to affirm calm. "I am safe. I am strong. I breathe easily and joyfully." She practiced daily, even during anxious moments. Gradually, her body began to relax. Her breathing improved. She regained control, not through force, but through belief. Murphy taught that the subconscious mind could not distinguish between a real event and a vividly imagined one. This is why visualization is so powerful. Athletes who mentally rehearse their performance can improve without physically moving. Salespeople who imagine positive meetings often experience them. Artists who see their completed work in the mind find inspiration more easily. The subconscious brings into reality what it is shown repeatedly. He spoke of the law of reversed effort. When a person tries too hard, they often block the very thing they want. A swimmer who panics in water sinks. But when they relax, they float. The same applies to the subconscious. Forcing change rarely works. But gentle, calm repetition allows transformation to happen effortlessly. Before any major decision, Murphy advised people to consult their subconscious. They could do this by entering a quiet state and asking, "What is the best course of action?" Then they would let go, trusting that the answer would arrive. It might come as a sudden idea, a dream, or a peaceful knowing, but it would come. In matters of health, he reminded readers of countless cases where the subconscious triggered healing. The mind controlled every cell, every process. If the mind could make a person sick through stress, it could also make them well through belief. He encouraged patients to speak kindly to their bodies, to imagine light flowing through them, to see themselves whole. One man with chronic back pain began repeating each day, "My back is strong and supported. Every muscle and nerve works in perfect order." He visualized himself walking freely, lifting with ease. Over time, his posture improved. The pain reduced. His body had responded to the new mental pattern. Murphy never promised instant results. He compared mental work to planting a seed. The result would not appear overnight, but it would come. Persistence was essential. Just as no one expects to reap a harvest the day after planting, one must not give up if results do not appear immediately. Faith and patience were vital companions. He also taught the importance of gratitude. Gratitude, he said, was the most powerful emotion to speed up manifestation. To be thankful in advance for the blessings one seeks sends a powerful message to the subconscious that the result is already true. Thank you for my perfect health. Thank you for my loving relationships. Thank you for the success that surrounds me. These were not just polite expressions, they were creative commands. Many people wrote to Murphy, sharing stories of how gratitude had changed their lives. One woman, struggling with loneliness, began a daily gratitude journal. She wrote down all the ways love already existed in her life, from friends, from nature, from pets. As her inner focus shifted to appreciation, she began attracting deeper human connections. Eventually, she met a partner who matched the love she had cultivated within. Murphy also explored the topic of age and vitality. He challenged the belief that aging had to mean decline. He pointed out that many people remained active, joyful, and creative well into their 90s. The key was mindset. Repeating phrases like, "I'm getting too old for this," sent damaging messages to the subconscious. But affirmations like, "Every year I grow wiser, stronger, and more vibrant," had the opposite effect. A retired man who felt useless and depressed began saying daily, "I still have much to give. My life has purpose and meaning." He soon found himself mentoring younger men, volunteering, and rediscovering his passion for painting. His health improved, and so did his joy. His body and soul had responded to the new mental image. Murphy did not ask people to take his word blindly. He invited experimentation. He wanted readers to test these principles for themselves. Choose one area: health, wealth, relationships, or confidence. Apply affirmations. Visualize success. Feel the truth of the new belief, and then observe the results. He reminded everyone that the subconscious is always listening, not just in moments of meditation, but all day long. Idle words, stray thoughts, emotional outbursts, all send signals. That's why consistent practice was necessary. Not rigid perfection, but steady, loving awareness. A young couple wanted a child, but had been unsuccessful for years. They began to imagine their future family with joy. They set up a nursery room, bought baby clothes, and thanked the universe daily. They let go of fear and believed completely. Within months, they conceived. Their joy was not only in the child, but in the realization that they had shaped their lives with love and intention. Murphy also spoke about intuition. He believed that when the mind was quiet, the subconscious could speak. This inner voice did not shout. It whispered. It came as hunches, sudden clarity, peaceful nudges. He encouraged people to trust it, to act when it felt right, even if logic disagreed. A businesswoman once ignored a gut feeling and signed a contract she later regretted. The next time, she paused and asked her subconscious for guidance. She felt hesitation and declined the deal. Later, she discovered it was fraudulent. From then on, she used intuition as a compass, knowing it was the subconscious revealing hidden truths. Murphy's work empowered millions to stop living reactively and begin living creatively. He didn't offer false promises or magic formulas. He offered a map, one that led inward, toward the greatest resource each human possessed. As the years passed, the quiet revolution that Joseph Murphy had ignited continued to ripple through lives and generations. His words were simple, but their effect profound. People in every corner of the world began to understand that they were not helpless. They were not at the mercy of luck, fate, or circumstance. Instead, they were powerful co-creators of their lives, shaping their reality not through external action alone, but through the thoughts they planted in their subconscious minds. A boy named David grew up hearing that he was average. Teachers told him he lacked focus. Friends laughed at his dreams. For years, he believed them. But in a chance moment, he picked up a book by Murphy. He read that the subconscious mind believes whatever it is told with emotion and repetition. David decided to try. Every morning, he repeated, "I am brilliant. I am focused. I achieve what I set out to do." At first, it felt like a lie, but he persisted. Months passed, and he found himself drawn to books, absorbing knowledge more easily. He began excelling in school. What had changed was not his brain, but his belief. In another part of the world, a woman named Eliza had been trying to start a business for years but feared failure. Every time she came close to launching, she imagined things going wrong. Her subconscious, loyal as always, fulfilled her worst fears. After studying Murphy's work, she changed her inner script. My business is thriving. I serve with joy. Success flows to me with ease. She visualized happy clients, bank deposits, and peaceful workdays. Within 6 months, she was running a profitable enterprise. Her reality had shifted because her mind had first shifted. Murphy always taught that the outer world is a mirror of the inner world. If the inner world is filled with fear, guilt, or resentment, those emotions will find their way into one's experiences. But if the inner world is filled with peace, love, and expectancy, then life will reflect those states back. He shared the story of a man tormented by guilt over a past mistake. He felt he didn't deserve happiness, and his life reflected that. Financial struggles, broken relationships, and health problems followed him. When he began to forgive himself, to affirm, "I release the past. I deserve joy and peace," things began to change. Opportunities appeared. His relationships softened. Even his chronic pain eased. Forgiveness had opened the door to healing. Murphy reminded people that the subconscious is not limited by time. It does not know past or future. It only knows now. So when one imagines a future event, the subconscious begins to prepare for it as if it is already happening. That's why it was so important to feel the emotion of success, love, health, and wealth, as if they already existed. One man, hoping to improve his financial life, began to imagine his ideal bank balance. He would write checks to himself, visualize receiving $5,000, $10,000, and then eventually $5,000. He paired that with affirmations like, "I am financially free. Money comes to me through multiple channels." Over time, his income rose. He started a second business, and unexpected inheritance arrived. His imagination had trained his mind for abundance, and reality followed. Murphy also discussed how fear often stands in the way of desire. Fear is faith turned upside down. It is belief in harm instead of belief in good. The subconscious accepts fear as an instruction, just as it does love or faith. That's why worrying is so harmful. It's like praying for what you don't want. He gave the example of a mother who constantly feared her son would get hurt. She would often say, "Don't fall, don't get sick, be careful, or you'll hurt yourself." Though well-meaning, these statements were rooted in fear. Over time, her son became anxious and prone to accidents. When she shifted her language to, "You are strong, you are safe, and you are protected," he grew more confident and healthier. The words spoken repeatedly, especially by those closest to us, hold incredible power. But so do the words we say to ourselves. Murphy emphasized the importance of self-talk. Even silent thoughts are picked up by the subconscious. That's why he encouraged people to make positive self-talk a daily habit. He also introduced the concept of the mental movie. He encouraged individuals to sit quietly each day, relax their bodies, and visualize their ideal outcome like watching a film. Whether it was perfect health, a dream home, a loving family, or success in a career, see it clearly. Add color, emotion, sound. The more real the mental picture, the faster the subconscious would respond. A young dancer used this technique to win a prestigious competition. Each day for weeks, she visualized herself on stage, her movements perfect, the applause, the joy of winning. When the day arrived, she danced with an ease and grace she had never known. Her body simply followed the pattern her mind had already rehearsed. Murphy also spoke about the power of repetition. Just as water wears down rock through persistence, repeated thoughts carve grooves in the subconscious. That's why consistency mattered more than intensity. Saying a powerful affirmation once a week had less effect than a calm repetition each morning and night. He advised using the final 5 minutes before sleep to impress the subconscious. At that time, the conscious mind relaxes and suggestions sink deeper. Whatever is thought about before sleep often continues to play throughout the night, influencing dreams, emotions, and even the body's healing processes. For those with long-standing negative beliefs, Murphy offered hope. The subconscious was not fixed. It could be reprogrammed. Even decades of self-doubt could be undone with love, patience, and practice. He encouraged people to be gentle with themselves. Progress would come, even if slowly. The key was not to quit. One man had been told since childhood that he would never be good with money. That belief had followed him for 40 years. But with Murphy's methods, affirmation, visualization, and gratitude, he began to undo that story. He started with small victories, saving small amounts, enjoying budgeting, feeling worthy of wealth. Within 2 years, he was debt-free and managing a successful investment portfolio. His outer world had changed because he had rewritten his inner script. Murphy reminded everyone that this power was not his invention. It had existed forever. He simply pointed to it, clarified it, and taught people to use it wisely. The subconscious mind had no agenda. It simply obeyed. It would work equally well for good or bad, love or fear, health or illness. The choice belonged to each individual. He concluded many of his writings with simple but profound reminders that each person is the sum of their thoughts, that life responds not to hopes, but to beliefs, and that within every human being lies an infinite reservoir of intelligence, creativity, and love, waiting to be awakened. In offices and homes, in cities and villages, in schools and hospitals, people began to live differently. They began to take responsibility for their inner world. They began to choose their thoughts with care, to speak with intention, and to imagine their best lives not as distant dreams, but as present truths. The power of the subconscious mind was not a secret. It was a science of living, a way to partner with the invisible intelligence within. And for those who practiced faithfully, the rewards were real. Peace of mind, improved health, deeper relationships, greater success. As the world grew noisier and more chaotic, Murphy's teachings remained a lighthouse. They reminded people that while we cannot always control the world, we can always influence our inner state. And when the inner world is aligned with truth, faith, and love, the outer world begins to reflect it. This was the gift Joseph Murphy offered: a path inward, a path forward, and a reminder that the most powerful force in the universe is already within. It asks only to be directed, believed in, and lovingly awakened. Your subconscious mind is always listening and always creating. What you plant as belief, it grows into reality. Joseph Murphy showed us that true change doesn't start outside. It begins within. If today's story opened your eyes to the quiet power you already hold, don't let it fade. Subscribe to Thinknova, where we dive into timeless wisdom to help you master your thoughts and shape your future. Because once you control your mind, you control everything.